Good morning. I'm going to stay down here so I can stay connected energetically. I got to tell you, it's good to be back in Music City. Yeah, nicely done, Susan. Yeah, wow. So let's take a moment this morning and think back over your life and let's inventory your successes. So when you look back over your life, what are the things in your life that you feel really good about, your achievements? Education that you got, I'm in Music City, songs published, performances completed, kids raised, challenges overcome. When you look back over your life, what are the things that you look at and you say, wow, I did that? Take a moment and really let yourself see it and feel it right now. Then look at the blessings that you have received just because you're here. The goodness in your life. And let's take a moment and really express gratitude for all of the blessings that we get to experience simply because we're here. And so let's just relish and delight in that sense of accomplishment and achievement and the awareness of Spirit's presence in our life through the blessings in our life. It feels good, huh? Yeah. Now, let's switch gears. And I invite you to scan the landscape of your life and look at the places where you feel the pinch. Look at the places where you feel some discontent, some dissatisfaction, some frustration. Look at those 4 areas that I know that you deal with: health, relationships, your vocation, how you share your gifts, your talents, your skills, and your time and money freedom. And just notice where your results are just not quite where you want them to be. Even though things are good, pay attention to those places in your life where the results are just not quite at that level that you know is possible. And you might feel some frustration, and there might even be a part of you that says, I don't want this. Give yourself the gift right now of feeling your discontent. And then understand that that feeling that you're experiencing, that edge up against that, I wish this were different, that's actually Spirit's knock at the door of your heart, inviting you into a much greater experience and expression of more. That our dissatisfaction, our discontent, our frustration is actually God's signal to us saying there is more possible and available to you. But it's up to us to step into it. Are y'all with me? All right. I'm in Michael and Diane's church. So here's what I know. I know we got us some amens in us. Right? Thank you. I was in Palo Alto last week. Maybe not so much. Oh, y'all are quiet. I know. All right, so we'll get you going here. So there's a spiritual part of us. There's that part of us that sometimes even hesitates looking at the discontent. That somehow we think that there's an inadequacy if we acknowledge that something may not exactly be working the way that we want it to. What I want to invite you into today is to take a deep dive headfirst into whatever the facts and the conditions in your life right now that are not matching up to what it is that you would like. Because that is where God is signaling to you to step into something even more magnificent and to discover even more magnificence about you. Are y'all with me? Yes. Here's the deal. Thank you. I heard it. Here's the deal. That we are creative beings. I mean, Reverend Franklin did a remarkable meditation. David, what you read in terms of understanding our true nature, I mean, we get that we are creative beings built with full capacity to express the full nature of Spirit. That we have 100% capacity to translate what we would love here out here. That we have 100% capacity truly to create lives that absolutely bear witness to the power that is breathing us. And what is that creative capacity? We all know what our creative capacity is. What is our creative capacity? It's our It's our imagination. It's our thinking capacity. That what we predominantly mentally rehearse and emotionally charge delivers a pattern to this invisible substance in a way that I don't begin to understand, but it's a good thing that we don't have to understand it to be able to effectively and intentionally use it. We impress this pattern into this invisible substance, and in some way, it organizes itself around that pattern and demonstrates in the results of our life. We get this, and yet there's a disconnect for so many of us between what we say we want here and what's happening in our results. That somehow something is getting lost in the translation, and we're struggling physically. We're struggling in our finances. We're doing work that maybe we kind of enjoy, but it doesn't bring our heart alive, or we are doing work that brings our heart alive. We're not exactly getting the results that we would love to get. There may be struggle in our relationship that we know it, but there's a disconnect between the knowing and what's happening in our results. Bob Proctor calls this phenomenon having superior knowledge and inferior results. Not that our results are inferior, but they're just not where we know that they're capable of being. When he talks about superior knowledge and inferior results, he says it's confusing. It's confusing, right? There was an amen on that one. I say it's torturous. It's torture. Yeah, I'm seeing some nods. And I know in my case that I had something that was of major importance to me. And I was pouring everything I knew into growing it to something that I knew would really make a difference. And something was getting lost in the translation. In fact, I remember one day in particular, it was a July day, and I'm down in Murfreesboro, and I had just poured my heart and soul into a project that was deeply meaningful. And my results were average. How many of you have ever had an experience like this, where you've worked really hard at something and you end up with average results? And there was a part of me, and so I'm pounding around my neighborhood in Murfreesboro, 3:00 in the afternoon in July, and it takes no explanation here what that experience was like, right? Sweat is literally pouring off of me. I'm impervious to this. I'm impervious because I'm stomping it through my neighborhood, frustrated, feeling super inadequate, wondering, why am I not getting this? Why is it not showing up the way I know it's supposed to show up? I'm seeing lots of nods. And it was one of those line in the sand kind of moments for me. Because the thoughts that got triggered were this. And so just notice if you have any of these same thoughts. One of the thoughts that got triggered from this experience was, you know what? If people would only do what I know they're supposed to be doing, right? Like it's got something to do with out here, that I had just made it about the conditions out here. Then the other thought was, maybe this is God's way of telling me to be happy with what I have, that I'm being ungrateful. And I got a really good life. And so maybe I should just learn to be satisfied with what is and just relax into what is. And then there was a voice deep down that said, maybe you don't deserve this much good. Maybe you're just not cut out for this. Maybe this really isn't for you. I got to tell you. So just notice if there's any of those same voices. And inside of me, when I became aware of the voices, there was a part of me that rose up so deep inside that just absolutely rebelled. It rebelled against that. Because I knew I could not have the desire without the means to bring it into the facts of my life. So stand in my knowing with you right now that you could not have the desire without the ability, the means to bring it into the facts of your life. And for me, it was one of those marker days. And so what if today is a marker day? That you make a decision for something that is so meaningful for you. And it's okay if you don't know exactly what it is. But that you make a decision today that it doesn't matter what it takes, you are going to get this figured out. And you are going to bring into the land of facts a life that you absolutely love, deserve, and bears witness to that power that are breathing you. Are you game for this? Yeah. You know, it's interesting. It's Palm Sunday. It's Palm Sunday. We're heading into a week of deconstruction in order to be ready for the resurrection. Holy Week is all about deconstructing. And so what we're going to get into this afternoon is helping you get clear about what is that resurrection and what is it that you need to deconstruct to get there. So there was my line in the sand as I'm stomping through the neighborhood. And I knew no matter what it was going to take, I had to get this figured out. I also knew for me that I'd gone as far as I could the way that I was doing it. Here's what I want all of us to understand as we enter into this week of deconstruction. That you that got you here, March 20th, 2016, is not the same you that's going to get you to that life that you love, your life of more, March 20th, 2019. That conversation, March 20th, is a completely different conversation than the man or the woman's having today. And so part of this process of stepping into more is becoming willing to let go of those thought processes, those habits, those actions, those knee-jerk decision-making methodology that continues to perpetuate the same level of results, which are good, but they're not what you're aiming for 3 years from now. And so I knew stomping around that neighborhood that doing the same thing that I had done up to that point was not going to get me where it was that I wanted to go. And that I needed support. I needed a completely different level of help. Now, the request was strong enough and sustained enough. Remember, we're dealing with this invisible substance that is continually organizing itself around the pattern of thinking that we are giving it. And so as we have a very clear thought and we sustain the energy around that thought, it cannot help but organize accordingly. And so as I sustain that thought, of course, the facts reflected it. And so literally, 8 weeks later, I'm sitting in front of somebody who I knew could help me. My current mentor, Mary Morrissey. And I'm pouring my story out. And guess what? It was a condition-based story. These are the reasons why things are not working. And she looked at me and she nodded her head and she listened to my story. We all have the story. And then she said those magic words. I can help you. It's like, great. And then she said, and this is what it's going to cost you. Now, what's so great about this process, why this is such a powerful spiritual transformation, is that to move from where you currently are to where you want to be, there's a cost. There's a cost. As I said earlier, that you cannot take who you are. You cannot take the same pattern of thinking. You cannot take the same default decision-making methodology. You cannot take the same actions. You cannot take the same conversation. This life is like a different country to this life. We literally have to adapt ourselves to those new results. Can y'all see this? I mean, you can see it in your achievements, what you had to do to adapt yourself to the new results, to the new geography of your dream life. So here's what happens when we are presented with an invitation for more. I'm sitting there at this table and two phenomena get triggered. Number one, we as a species have been highly trained to take inventory of the information that the five senses gives us. we start thinking conditionally. We look at our checkbooks, we look at our time, we look at what other people around us are doing or not doing. We look at the opinions of others, we look at what we've done in the past, and we're not even aware that we're doing this. And then we will hear ourselves saying, let me look at my checkbook, let me look at my calendar to decide if I want to do that or not. It's like we don't even let ourselves think about what it is that we really want without consulting conditions, as if that has anything to do with what we want, as if it has anything to do with what the image of more is. And so all of these thoughts are going through my head as Mary Morris, who looks at me and says, to work with me for a year is $18,000. Now that was 5 years ago. It has changed considerably since then, and I continue to stay in that container of support because of what happens when you get a very laser-focused formula. So, my thought, God, there's so many better uses for that money. As if money was frozen. Seeing the stream of my income just froze in that moment. And then I made other things than me developing my ability to access and use this power and service to a life that I love that ultimately contributes to everybody. I made other things more important. Second thing, how do I have this conversation with my husband? From an energy of going to him for permission, as if we have to ask somebody else permission to make a decision for the life that is longing to express by means of us. Then it went deeper. So we're gathering the facts. We're thinking from conditions. When you think about it, the conditions are just simply a perfect echo of our highest level of awareness and belief up to that moment. So whatever you're looking at right now, all it can do is reflect back to you your highest level of awareness and relationship with this invisible substance. Can y'all see this? Here's the second thing that happens. We literally are habituated for whatever level of success we're experiencing. Your biology is wired for your current pattern of life. And when you begin to think of something more expansive beyond anything that you've ever expanded before, and not just saying the words and doing the study and feeling good on Sunday morning, but physically thinking about making a decision that in the face of the facts defies logic, your biology will fire off. Do you all know what I'm talking about? Yes. And it doesn't say, okay, I'm your biology now firing off because you're entertaining a greater experience of more. It's like this panic that begins to rip through you, and it will latch on to every reason why this is not a good idea. It's an interesting phenomenon that we do as human beings, that when we start thinking about something more expansively, we will start adding up the cost if it doesn't work. Right? We start ticking off what it's going to cost us if we fail or if it doesn't work. How many of us really evaluate the cost for staying where we are? Yeah, and not going forward. So what happened in that container of support, and I'm all these thoughts are just flipping through my head. And the success set point was, do I really have what it takes to be able to do what it is that I really want to do? And do I really deserve this? But because I was in a container of support, and this is what I'm going to provide for you this afternoon, to give you an opportunity to really lean deeply into the most reverent question that we can ask ourselves, which is, what would I love? Knowing that it is love itself seeking to expand and express more by means of you. I am in this container of support, and I was able to go two directions and see. So come with me. Come with me. Bring an imagined possibility to mind for yourself, whatever it is. And it's okay if it's vague right now. We're going to get deeper into it this afternoon. But come with me. 6 months, a year, 5 years with a no. When I did that, it felt like the lights just went down. Now, my life was good, but it was an almost it. And I was no longer willing to live in an almost it anymore. So go. 6 months, a year, 5 years. a no. Just imagine yourself saying no to whatever is getting triggered right now for that expression for more. And then go 6 months, a year, 5 years with a yes, a solid, decisive line in the sand. I don't care what it takes. I will figure this out. Yes. And feel the expansiveness, the possibility, the awareness, and the transformation in you. So in that moment, I knew how to get started. That's all we got to know to move our feet, is how do we get started. I didn't know where I was going to go beyond that, but I knew how to get started. And the word yes, almost in spite of myself, came out of my mouth. Now, why this is important to you, number one, to illustrate the process of what it is to truly bring spiritual idea, spiritual principle into time-space reality. And then as a result of that, yes, I got swooped up into a container of support where I learned how to create that same container of support, learned a 5-step formula of how to translate these spiritual laws in a very real, tangible, practical way, transform my own life, and am now literally transforming thousands of people. When I look at my results, and the reason why I like to talk about my results, we have to talk about our results. We have to show that this stuff works. It's like saying, I don't want to tell people I have electricity. What will they think of me? Right? It's like, it's the same law. We just tapped into the law of electricity. So as I have learned how to apply this law, I look at my life is unrecognizable. I landed in Nashville yesterday thinking, I am so not the same person. My ability to impact people. I was invited to do a summit. Wednesday, I did a summit where 30,000 viewers around the world participating. Yes. Teaching this. It will air in April, mainly in Latin America. And when I look at my income, and I'm going to talk income, again, to neutralize the energy that we have around money, and also to clearly demonstrate what happens when we really begin to live from spiritual law. That when I started this 5 years ago, my income was right around mid-5 figures. This past year, it was mid-6 figures. It's a 900% increase. Now, income may not be where you're bumping up against your edge, but imagine a 900% increase in that area for you. Whether it's your health, it's your love, a 900% increase in what's happening and your ability to share your gifts, your talents, or a 900% increase in your income as you're able to write the check to help support Music City Center for Spiritual Living. Write a check for Michael and Diane, the terrific work that they've done, to be able to take a fully paid sabbatical. Whatever it is, 900% that allows you to truly serve and contribute at a level that is only a fantasy right now. So here's your homework. First of all, I'm going to encourage you to come to the workshop this afternoon. I know you may think you have plans. But here's the great thing about being an adult, is that you get to change your plans. And I promise you that you come this afternoon, you will hear something that if you apply it consistently will cause you to change your life. Understand that the knock at the door of your heart is not you being ungrateful or not doing something wrong. It is Spirit seeking to expand and express by means of you, and that there is a very specific technology that, when understood and applied, will cause you to move it out of the land of fantasy into the land of your facts. Make it your life to learn that. Get support. We are not meant to do this alone. We teach this stuff, and you all have brilliant ministers with wonderful offerings here. So get fully engaged and celebrate along the way. Every piece of evidence, every act, every shift in consciousness and outward result is just simply evidence that Spirit is moving in your life. Because imagine a world where every man, woman, and child understood who they're capable of and made a decision for more life, more joy, more abundance, and more magnificence. This truly is how we create the kingdom of heaven here on earth. God bless. See you this afternoon.